very eventful few weeks at the club, starting with the promotion after a long sort of time waiting to get the promotion from the Northern Premier League. We got there in the end. How much did that mean to yourself and to the club?
Well, yeah, I think I've said it before, but huge relief I think was the biggest emotion. Dan, you know better than anybody just what it means to everybody here at the club, the fans, the supporters, obviously the sponsors, all of the staff, all the volunteers, the committee lads. So it meant so much, and we've been tantalisingly close so often. So it was just nice to finally get it over the line. So yeah, huge relief was the biggest emotion I felt.
There must have been a lot of times in that period of 5 years in that league when you must have thought it was never going to happen. The COVID season in particular was a real kick in the teeth, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think looking back, I remember obviously the first defeat by Warrington in the playoffs that time, which, if I'm honest, I probably didn't sort of appreciate the importance of that and how close we were at the time. And then, of course, as you rightly say, we then led into the sort of COVID seasons, and in particular the one where we were 12 points clear with 9 games left. And then, of course, more recently the further defeat to Warrington in the playoffs. And I remember walking home from that game feeling fairly depressed, like all of us were, I'm sure. But, I would say as a club, and I like to think it applies to me as a person, I'm nothing if nothing more than sort of, persistent and hard working. And I don't mean to apply that to myself, but I think that's the sort of ethos of the club. We just picked ourselves up and we went again, and thankfully we got it over the line in the season just complete.
When you look back at the season just gone, we obviously won the league with quite a distance between the second place team, but with a lot of hard work went in that from a lot of people, didn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously we appointed Kevin and he did a great job for us. I think throughout that season we were always confident we'd get there. As we both know, there were moments during the season though that we kind of maybe lost some momentum a little, but ultimately all credit to Kevin at the time, and obviously Kevin did a great job, as I've just said, and all credit to the players that we just they knuckled down and they got through. And when there were a few sticky moments towards the latter part of the season, the lads responded, and in the end we kind of won the title reasonably comfortably from a numbers point of view, 8 points clear. So yeah, I think we can all breathe that huge sigh of relief and look forward to an exciting season ahead next year.
Of course, since the end of the season, Kevin has left the club. That must have been a very difficult decision to come to, one that you came to mutually, but I guess it was a difficult few days when that decision was being mulled over. Yeah,
it was. I mean, we've made a statement publicly about it, and I've commented as well. I repeat, Kev did a great job. I think the time was right that he felt as well as I did that perhaps we shook each other's hand. I feel that I delivered for him, and he certainly delivered for me and for the club. And it was probably the right time for us just to sort of part as friends and wish each other the best of luck. And I don't want to sound sort of too cryptic about that. There's nothing really sort of sinister about it. It's just, Kev's star is most certainly in the ascendancy. I'm sure he'll reappear soon in football management somewhere. We finally got to that important threshold of getting into the National League system and in the National League North. And I think, Kevin, I don't want to speak for him, but he wanted to spend big to go again, and I'm conscious that our club has to do things in a more sustainable way. That doesn't mean that we're not ambitious and that we're not going to have a real push next season, but certainly I think there was a bit of a gap between Kev's expectations and what I was able to deliver for him. And again, that all sounds rather sort of sinister. It's not really. It's just we had a grown-up conversation about it, and there was a little bit of a gap. And given the success that he delivered for us last year, we both felt perhaps it was the right time, as I've said.
I know it's sad when a manager leaves, but it creates an opportunity for someone else to come in. And I guess you've had that process now of going through that process of appointing a new manager, and you've come to Julio. How early in the process did you decide that he was the right person, would you say?
Well, the first thing I'd say is I've been absolutely flattered by the number of the number of people who've actually applied for the job, in a very short space of time. Quite incredible. And it says something about, the profile of our football club that I won't name any names, that would be improper, but, we've had an absolute flurry of very, very well qualified, very capable people who've applied for it. And obviously the process had to be quite a quick process because I didn't want to leave uncertainty and doubt for both the fans, the sponsors, for the club, for the community, and equally, from a kind of momentum point of view, getting an early appointment is important in my view because it gives Julio now an opportunity to really start to plan and execute on his vision moving forward. So yeah, I mean, it's all happened rapidly, but I've been in touch with Julio for the entire time since he left us as a player. He's become somebody I regard as a sort of friend. He's somebody I know, and even when he was living out in Argentina, we kept in touch occasionally. So he was always an obvious candidate when Kevin and I decided, that outcome, if you like. So Julio was one of a number of candidates, but I think, is without doubt the standout candidate. He obviously knows the club well, having played for us. He now lives back in the northeast in Sunderland, so he's somebody who knows the area well. As I say, he knows South Shields really well. I know the fans will be very pleased that he's back, and beyond that, he's got a real thirst to progress his career in management. I think he's a very professional individual, very considered individual, and I think he's going to put his own stamp on things here. And obviously we're going to support him with an appropriately qualified assistant who's got, National League experience, not the National League North experience. So Julio will be joined at the appropriate time and very soon by somebody with that expertise and that experience, and somebody that he trusts and somebody that he will pick. And again, we're quite close to that appointment as well.
Julio became a legend at this club over his 3 years here. What are the sort of qualities that he showed you in that 3-year spell that convinced you that you'd be sort of the perfect guy to be the manager as well?
Yeah, as I say, I think he's very professional. I think a very considered, quite a humble, individual. He's not somebody who necessarily wants to promote himself. So there's a certain way about him in terms of how he conducts himself. We all know about his playing career and how well he did there before he came here. Actually, that's a mark of the man as well, that he was prepared to come down and play for South Shields, having played in the Premier League. So it says a lot about him as a person, and he demonstrated that on the pitch for us as a player, all of those attributes and behaviours. And I think we're going to see that in abundance with him as manager. And I'm sure he's going to do incredibly well. And as I say, he'll be ably assisted by his choice of assistant with that right experience, as I've just said. And, the whole club will get behind him, as I will, and I'm sure everybody else here. And I'm sure we're going to have a very exciting season ahead.
Has there been set any targets at this stage, or is it a little bit too early to look that far ahead? Yeah,
I think it's difficult because we've had years as a club of fans expecting us to smash the league and win promotion every single time. And as much as I'd love to say, yeah, let's do it again next year, I think we do have to be considered and realistic. We're not going to be the big fish in National League North. We might be one of them, perhaps, potentially. But, there's some great clubs there with some great history. And we're joining a whole new set of opponents. So I think that again implies that, we're going to be a bit more cautious. Well, we're not. But we're not going to be the big fish. We're not going to have the biggest budget. But we'll have a very, very competitive budget for next year. And one that I think Julio knows those numbers. We've shared all of that detail. And he's very enthusiastic and optimistic about the plans for next year. And he's going to be incentivised to get us promoted. So there's not any lack of ambition or any lack of desire. But, you know, again, I must stress that, you know, having had, 7 or 8 years now with me involved at the club, we've always sort of strived to get out of the league immediately. All right, we didn't quite do it for a few years in the Northern Premier League, but we've always had that sort of expectation, and we've tried to, you know, we've been the big fish in many respects, without sounding arrogant and being disrespectful to our previous opponents. But you know, that no longer applies. We're a very credible club with a great history, but we're one of a number now in National League North, and we've just got to make sure that we go about it in the right way and we compete effectively without necessarily being top dog.
And as you mentioned in the statement, it's really key to be sustainable moving forward as a football club, and to be less reliant on one individual. I guess that's on everyone to support that, isn't it, in terms of the fans, the sponsors, the non-match day, the events that are here. It's important to underline that every penny that's put into the club is reinvested, isn't it?
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I know I kind of replay that message time and again, and people might get sick of hearing it, but, you know, I've invested significantly in the club, probably more than I ever expected, if I'm honest with myself. But you know, I'm happy to have done so. And in my view, you know, when I came here in 2015, you know, the place hadn't had a lick of paint for God knows how many years, and you know, there was so much that needed to be done. And I won't go through the entire list, but you know, the fans will be well aware of the investments that had to be made. One could argue some of them were absolutely imperative, some of them have been more of a luxury. And for me, you know, certainly for me, getting to the point where last year we invested in the new stand, we've got our training facility, obviously, which obviously we don't own, but we're a licensee up there at the welfare, and we've got a nice facility there that we share with other users. But the bottom line is we've now got all of the components in place. For me, the stand was a significant investment last year, and again, I say this for the right reasons. You know, it was over £3 million just the stand alone, and as I said, I wasn't going to go and list all the things that have been done, but you know, there's a myriad of them. But I'm saying that because I think the club needed that period of investment to get to a point where we have an infrastructure that gives us a chance to be sustainable. Because had we just got the paintbrush out in 2015 and given the place a bit of a refresh, we would never have had the facilities to compete beyond where we were then. So I know this is probably a statement of the obvious, but you know, that there was a need for that investment phase. And I'm not saying it's over yet, but a big slice of it might be. You know, we've got to get to a point where this ground can qualify for sort of EFL ground grading, and we're not a million miles away from that. Obviously, we've got a long way to go to ever get to the EFL, but the point is, a lot of the investment's been made, a lot of the components are in place. And coming back to your question, I just think that that was all necessary and was all an important prerequisite. And now we've got to make sure that the facilities we have got are fully utilised, both on match day, you know, so hopefully we can get big crowds in here. We've got some exciting new opponents next year. We've got a number of local derbies as well, so it's going to be an exciting season. And not just on match day, as you just said, Dan, you know, we've got to get people here if we can to use the facilities on non-match day, and make sure that the club is truly part of the community and is being used by the community. And only in that way can we generate the income to survive and prosper in the league that we're about to enter. So yeah, it's a message I keep trying to repeat. It can't be, back to your earlier point, it can't be about me all of the time. It was never my intention that was the case. And you know, I've had, Dan, you might be aware, well, you're clearly aware, I've had a major and quite serious health scare at the tail end of last calendar year, and I'm still obviously receiving treatment, and you know, that also made me really refocus on what was important, getting the club to sustainability. And again, I repeat the same message time and again, it's about getting our house in order, yes, but equally getting the fans, the sponsors to back the club as best they can, as they have done historically. but getting the community to be here and to use the facilities, turn up on match day, but hopefully use the facilities non-match day. So yeah, I'm repeating the same point, but I made the point about my own health simply because it's really made me focus on what's important, and the club currently is in touching distance of that sustainability, but we're not quite there. We've got quite a number of exciting initiatives. Obviously, promotion was one. I've mentioned the new stand, that was another. And I think the launch of the International Academy as well is a third. And if we can start to populate that with some international talent, certainly the revenues that will generate will again go a long way into making the club more and more sustainable.
As well as the revenues that the International Academy might bring as well, I guess it shows the prestige of the club as well and how far the club has grown in the last 8 years that we can now boast an International Academy here.
Yeah, you're right. I suppose you're absolutely. I mean, if we'd knocked on the door of Sunderland University and asked them to be our partner 7 or 8 years ago, I don't think we would have really been credible. And we certainly are now, and I'm delighted that we've got that partnership established, and I thank the university for that and everybody involved there. And we've got, Lee Picton, for example, now almost entirely dedicated to, growing that, establishing that and growing that academy. And we've already proven we can do it. All right, maybe not at an international level, but our academies are very well regarded. Both 11 to 16 academy at Mortimer, and the main academy, obviously the 16 to 19 age group, and they're doing incredibly well, as we all know. So my point is, we've already proven that we've got the capability to set these things up. The International Academy adds a little bit more of an additional dimension and a set of additional challenges. But we've got the expertise in-house to do it, and I'm very confident that Lee and the team within the academies will do so and will be successful. And to make the point, that kind of initiative could never have happened a few years ago, and we've now got enough credibility and gravitas to be able to deliver on those sort of things.
And the main academy's been running since 2017 now as well. It's produced a number of players for the first team, both here and elsewhere. I guess that's going to be a key strand of things going forward as well, to get more and more of them through to the first team. Yeah,
I mean, again, it's part of that whole sort of sustainability thread, isn't it? That, we can't be the biggest spenders in National League North and beyond. We can be very competitive with the budget we've got, but one of the enablers certainly for our success is creating a pathway or if you like, reinforcing the pathway that's existed historically, because as you've said, a number of academy players have broken into the first team. I really see now the arrival of Julio and his team as an opportunity to kind of re-establish that and to emphasise the importance of that pathway and to hopefully develop that young talent and get that young talent, breaking into the first team. And that allows us to be, as I say, more competitive, grow our own talent, our own homegrown talent. And therefore, I'm not saying that, well, it's an obvious point, it means we don't have to always get the checkbook out to acquire some big name player. I mean, we'll do that where we need to, but the bottom line is we've got to be more sustainable and develop our own talent, and the academies that we've invested in already, we're perfectly well placed to make good use of those.
Just finally, have you got any final messages to the South Shields fans? Obviously, a lot of them will be very, very excited by this news of Julio coming in, but what would your message be from the club to them?
Well, I suppose a couple of things. I mean, thank them for all of their support, the fans and the sponsors, their continued support. And I wouldn't quite say beg, but I implore them to turn up in numbers next season. And as I keep saying, use the facilities here, not just on match day, but on non-match day as well. So first message is, my thanks to them for their previous support. I know the news of Kevin's departure will have shocked a number of people, so I apologise for that. But, I see this as a long journey that we're on. Kevin had a role to play in that journey, and he did a great job for us. But Julio is here now. It's another chapter, a very exciting chapter that we've got ahead of us. And, yeah, there'll be maybe a different way of doing things, but I think it's an exciting time again for the club. And, let's enjoy that ride, let's enjoy that journey. And let's see where we get to next season. But, no lack of commitment and enthusiasm from anybody. But, again, a healthy layer of realism and a healthy layer of, that whole sustainability theme. Sometimes people read that message and think, oh, hang on a minute, they're running out of money or something's happened. That's not the case. It's just, as I keep repeating, my health took a real dip last year, and I want to make sure the club's sustainable without me. God forbid, but you know, we've got to be sensible, and we're building something here that's got to be around for the next 100 years, not for the next 2 or 3.